the song. Thoughts become action, tell me what's happening. What's your mind wrapped around?
Read through, and once they hit these H1s, they're going to know that these H1s stand out from the rest of the content, so that means that the content contained within here is super important. So it's more important than the rest of the content. So this is where you would place your keywords for SEO and so on. So you're probably saying, okay, well, why don't I make everything H1? And the reason is that it actually wouldn't stand out. And also, for best practices, you want to really emphasize, highlight only a few keywords that are going to be relevant to the content of the web page. So you want to make things that are good for the users coming in as well as good for search engines as they're indexing your web page. So you got to think for the most important part is you want your users to have a good experience. So let me show you some additional sizes for H tags. So there's also H2, so I'm just going to type H2, and you're going to be able to see the difference between the H1s and H2s as we save those. So I'm going to go back out and refresh it. So you see the H2 is slightly smaller. It doesn't jump out, doesn't stand out as much as the H1, and we can go all the way down to H3. And the idea here is that we're progressing ever smaller. So we're starting out with our first main tags, our main category, our main information is going to be H1, and then as we go down, we might have H2, so we might have a number of H2s. And then, so these are subheadings off of the main heading. So even instead of calling them H2, we'll just call it subheading and subheading. And we see that now once I save it. So now we've got this breakdown of the content, and it's actually starting to get broken apart. We see what's being emphasized. And as the user coming in reading this, we know that if this, whatever content here is in subheading 2, if it's in the H2 and this catches our attention, then we continue reading. If we're not interested in this subheading, we go to the next big subheading and so on. And we're using H3 to further break down the content. So typically you won't see it used in this way because we'd have subheading and then we'd have some content and then some H3. So you progressively increment that H value until you reach all the way to 6. A lot of web pages, you're not really going to see too many headings going past maybe 4 at the most, because the idea is that the structure is that H1s are going to be the largest heading, and then the H2s are used to break apart the rest of that content, and if you want to break apart those chunks of content underneath the H2s, then that's where you use H3s and so on. And then the H3s you'd use, and you break apart content from the H3 and H4 and so on. So those would be subheadings of this H3 and all the way down. And as you can see, that as you start breaking that down, you're going to get really, really smaller text, less emphasized text, and as well, it's going to be a lot harder unless you've got a ton of content and a ton of subheadings in order to get to H6. So use these headings, use the heading elements, heading tags, wisely to break apart your content and to better represent your content. And as you can see here, when you're coming in here, you can see that when we inspect this one here, we can see that these are H2s, and this web page has, so these are the H2s, and we can also see that if these are H3s and so on. So this page is broken down with H2s, H2s, H3s are the smaller ones, and so on. So when you're looking at the page, these ones jump out the most, then these ones are sequentially less important, but they're still being emphasized as different areas within the web page. So in the next lesson, we're going to look at more structuring with your web page, paragraphs, line breaks, and so on. And this is all in order to better represent and make your text content more digestible for your web visitors. So that's coming up in the next lesson. So far within our text, within our HTML document, we actually don't have a lot of text. And that's why the headings don't really make a whole lot of sense, because we're really just breaking apart and we're just bolding out some stuff and we don't have anything in between. So what I want to do in this lesson is add in some dummy text. And dummy text is really important when you're designing your web page and you actually want it to make and have it look proper and actually look like a real web page. So let's add in a big chunk of dummy text. I'm using blindtextgenerator.com, number of different resources online in order to generate some dummy text. So lorem ipsum is text that actually looks real, but it's actually, so it's not English language, it's just lorem ipsum text. So it's basically used for placeholding within website design. So let's go ahead and I'm going to get rid of some of these. I'm going to paste all of that text in, save it, and refresh it. So there we go. So now we've got our web page, we've got a big chunk of text, and well, it doesn't really look that great. So someone coming into this website, a lot of times if you see something like this, you're not going to go reading through it because it's just too much text, and web visitors, they don't like to kind of, you've got under 5 seconds to actually capture a user's attention on a website. So always make sure that it's not too overwhelming. Something like this is overwhelming, and this is where we structure our page even more using elements like paragraphs or tags like paragraph tags. So these are opening and closing tags again, and basically it's just breaking apart your content and making it more digestible. So see here that when I add in paragraphs, right away this first sentence, it looks more readable, more presentable. I'm actually going to jump into here, and I'm going to add the paragraph tags here because this was very long and I don't want to scroll all the way over. So I'm going to take this apart, add in some paragraphs in some random spots here, and I'm going to show you how I can magically transform this to be a lot more readable. And also make sure that when you're opening, you're also closing. And paragraphs, don't include paragraphs in other paragraphs, so don't nest a paragraph within a paragraph. Some browsers don't take well to that. They're going to throw an error. So sometimes just make sure that you're keeping them all separated out. So now it's just a little bit more readable. In brackets, you can beautify the code so it is more readable within the code. So basically, I've added in paragraphs, and we can see that now when I go out to the web page and refresh it, it's a lot more digestible for a user coming in. And then you throw in a few headings, and this is a really great way to break apart that content. And so if I had this content was maybe something in regards to look at this, and maybe over here, so if we had a site about pets, if we had cats here, opening, closing, always remember to have those open and close tags. And then maybe this paragraph could be about dogs and so on. And when I refresh it and I come into the website, it actually looks like something that is fairly easy and straightforward. So if I'm coming into the web page, if I'm thinking I want to look about cats, then I know where I immediately go to, and I can start reading this instead of having to look over like a huge block of just regular text. I know where I need to go in order to find what I'm looking for. So also, if you notice here that with paragraphs, we're actually breaking apart that content. So there is a little bit of formatting there where we've got the paragraph starting, paragraph ending, we've got a new paragraph starting, a new paragraph ending, and we've got the spacing in between. And we also see that over here, as we're wrapping the text, we have no spacing. And you can actually do this within your HTML code as well. So if I had a really long paragraph here, and if I want to break it up a little bit, I can add these line breaks. So these are just BR tags, and whenever I refresh it, we see that we've got this line break, which is different than a paragraph because we have no additional formatting or styling that's being added in. All we're doing is adding in and returning the character to a new row, and that's all it's doing here. So no additional formatting, and this is another way that you can break apart your text, make it more consumable and easier to read. And one thing that we did notice here with the line breaks, there's no closing line break, and that's because line breaks are a different type of HTML tag where they're just inserting information about how that page gets rendered out. So there's actually nothing that you could really place in a line break because there's no content in a line break. It's just essentially as the browser's rendering out, hits a line break, it knows what to do. It means this is moved to the next line and does the same thing. So it's essentially works more like a command, and it allows the browser to render out that content as expected and as the web developer designed it to look. So the next lesson, we're going to look at adding even more formatting and structure. So if you had something where you've got a list of items and a list of content, you want to list that content out and have it all kind of blocked together. So this is where we can use unordered lists and lists within HTML. So those I'm going to show you in the next lesson. For this lesson, I want to show you and introduce you to lists, unordered lists, and ordered lists. And for this lesson, I'm going to be using CodePen because I want to show you how we can build out a list of items, and I really want to focus on these particular elements within HTML. So ordered list is representing an ordered list is an OL tag. So again, opening, closing, ordered list, and we've got some content in here. So we've got 1, 2, 3, and 4. So as we save that, we see, well, this doesn't really look like a list because we've got a bunch of content in here and it doesn't even represent as we would want a list to represent. So this is just essentially doing one line of code and it's just outputting some content in the middle, and this isn't really a list. And what is missing within this to make it actually a list? You need to be able to break apart each one of these items here, and we need to have a starting point and a finishing point so that the browser knows what the contents of the list is. So all the different items in the list. And this is where list items come in. And the tag is li for a list item. And these, again, are opening and closing. So make sure that when you're opening that, you're closing it. And we see that, look what's happening over here. We're already getting that formatting coming in. It's already starting to look like a list. And the browser's automatically throwing this 1 in here. And it's representing our first list item. So let's see what happens as we turn the rest of these into list items. So we see that it represents, it's got some number 2 there, and now let's do another one here, and what do you think is going to happen when I close off this list item? We've got number 3 and list item number 4. And we see that this is another way that we can pull out content and make it more meaningful within our web pages for our web visitors. So creating a list, really simple, straightforward. And you're probably wondering, okay, well, what if I didn't want these numbers here? What if I wanted something else? Like if I wanted letters, for instance. So sometimes you see lists with letters, and we can really easily change that to letters by doing type A. And this is all built in with HTML. So this is just something that the browser understands, that unordered lists have ability to change different list types. And what we've introduced now is an attribute. So going over and as we're specifying a type equals A, this is additional information that's contained within the ordered list. So we're no longer are we expecting that default ordered list, which is this numeric value, that we're actually specifying what type of list we're expecting. And there's a number of different types of lists. So I can do uppercase, I can do Roman numerals. So these are all changing, and we see these are all updating here. I can even do uppercase I for the uppercase Roman numerals. So depending on how you want this list to look, you can do it in a number of different ways. And you're probably wondering, okay, well, what if I don't want to start at 1? What if my list starts at 5, for instance? So this is another attribute, and we can be really specific where we want these numbers to start. Notice that Roman numeral 5, 6, 7, 8. And this is where we can specify how our list is starting. We can also go back to the letters. We can start them out at E, which is the 5th letter, F, G, H, and so on. So notice that this is giving us a lot of flexibility in our output. So there's also another type of list. So sometimes you don't want to order your list. You want to create a list and you're not sure how many items are in the list and so on. Maybe bullet points is something that's good enough to output here instead of these numbers. And these